Hi, everybody. I'm going to finish handing out some books right here, and then I'm going to get started. So I'm Kelly Garrett, but give me like a couple more minutes. Let me just get these passed out, because we're going to do a little legacy writing practice. And for those of you online, if you would like one of these books, I'm happy to leave some here, and they can be picked up at a later date. So, but if you're online, you're very welcome. If you're online, please grab a piece of paper and a pen. Oh, thanks. Did I give you one yet? Maybe not. All right, pens. Everybody have a book? All right, and a pen? Great. So if you're online, grab a pen and a piece of paper, because we're gonna do a little practice writing. All right. A little winded, so my apologies. Okay, hello everybody. My name is Kelly Garrett. I am the Community Partnership Specialist at Empath Health Tidewell Hospice, and I cover Sarasota and Manatee County. So I have the pleasure of going out and presenting wonderful presentations like legacy writing. I also do a presentation on hospice, grief, living wills. So we have lots of things to offer to our community because we really believe in being a great resource for everyone. But today I have the pleasure of doing legacy writing, which is one of my favorites, because what is a legacy and why is it important to talk about it, right? So before I get started, I really quickly just want to talk about Empath Health and Tidewell. So our vision here at Empath Health is we are here to redefine healthcare as full life care for all. Our mission is that we're unified in empathy, and we serve our communities through extraordinary full life care for all, and our core values. So today I hope to be courageously impactful for you. But I want to quickly talk about Tidewell and Empath. So in 1980, Tidewell was established here, Tidewell Hospice in this area. And in 2021, we actually merged with Suncoast Hospice, which is in Pinellas County, St. Petersburg area, and we became Empath Health. So now we have an ability to offer so many more services, like home health and personal care. We also have the ability to have free grief care to our community for children and adults. So that's kind of us in a quick nutshell. But hospice is so important because it's not just about end of life. It's about providing a service and promoting dignity in a transitional piece of your life, okay? So that's really important to us. So today we'll talk about some basic concepts of writing your own legacy and helping others to write theirs, and hopefully I inspire you to go home and write. And when I say write, I'm using that term very loosely, right? There's so many ways to record now and document our life's legacies. So when I say write, just know I use that very loosely. And hopefully you'll learn a little bit more about Tidewell and Empath. So before I get started, really into the meat and potatoes of this presentation, I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you a story about a girl who in 1918 was born. She was born in England, and she started as a social worker in her career. And then she shortly became a nurse, and then eventually a doctor. And what she believed is that we need to promote dignity in death. And this woman went around, because this was in the 1960s time, trying to convey to people the importance of dignity in death. And what ended up happening is nobody would really listen to her. They wouldn't listen to her as a social worker or an RN. So eventually, in her very dominated field, she became a doctor because somebody told her, hey, you know how you get people to listen to you? Become a doctor yourself. That's how you get doctors to listen to you. So she did. Pretty inspiring, right? This woman, her name was Dame Cecilia Saunders. Has anybody ever heard of her? Dame Cecilia Saunders. So let me tell you why it's important to know her name. She was actually the founder of hospice. She's the originator. She created a worldwide service. It's no longer just in London or England. It is now all over the world. It's a model that has been adopted by all of these nonprofit hospice services. She founded the first nonprofit hospice service, and that's what Tidewell is. Why do I tell you this story? Because that's her legacy, right? And you guys don't know her name, right? So why is it important that we write legacies? because there's so much influence that you have. Think about yourselves. Think about the wisdom you have, the stories you could share. It's an amazing thing to have, and we often put it aside, right? So one of the things that happened when we were in, when our hospice volunteers were sitting with our patients, they realized that all these legacies were going with their patients when they died. These stories, this wisdom that we all carry through our hardships, our grit, our resilience, our perseverance. We have stories that we need to share with our generations younger than us because we are making history day to day. You may not be the president of the United States, but you've got history to share. So you want to think about that. I want you to reflect on yourself, on your stories, on your legacy, and what that looks like. So we ended up creating Lifetime Legacy Guide and Journal, where our volunteers could sit and help hospice patients write their stories, their legacies. We actually now help our veterans write their legacies as well, and they get submitted to the Library of Congress, so they are forever in history. It's a pretty amazing thing, right? So let's talk about why we don't write, why we don't do this, and what might be missing. That story, it's written somewhere. I know it. That I told you, it's written, but it's the lost opportunity we don't want to miss. So I came to work at hospice because I went through a very personal journey with my mom. And now I have the pleasure of talking about her every day. And I get to talk about her stories and her life and the hardships that we went through and her journey into hospice, before hospice, and what that was like and the experience of going through hospice. I get to take her with me every day. I get her legacy to keep her legacy alive. But the thing is, when I lost my mom, I realized I lost so many stories. So my mom suffered a brain aneurysm at 63 years old, and it was unexpected and traumatic and crisis-driven through the entire experience. But what I didn't realize is shortly after going through my grief that all these amazing stories about my mom I lost. I knew that my mom hitchhiked across the United States. I knew that she fell asleep on a beach and ended up getting arrested because of it, because you're not allowed to sleep on beaches. I knew that my mom was actually a Playboy bunny at the Bunny Club, not a model, but just a bunny server. I knew all these things about her, but I didn't know really the stories. I knew that her house burned down and she lost her costumes. I knew all these stories, but the little bits and pieces that now I'm an adult, and I'm sure those stories would sound a lot different, are gone. They're gone with her. So I want you to think about those lost opportunities. What stories do you have to share? What do your loved ones have to share? What do you want to record and know about them? What intriguing questions do you want to ask, right? But today we're talking about your legacy, each one of yours. So when you think about yourself, reflect on the stories and the wisdom you want to share with the younger generations, right? So why don't we write? What keeps us from writing or recording our stories? Procrastination. Right? I'll do it tomorrow. I'll get to it one day. Somebody tells you, oh my gosh, that's an amazing story. You should write it down. Everybody's got a story like that, right? It always keeps us from procrastinating. My husband and I, we met when I was 14 years old. And we had this crazy, wonderful, beautiful story of, I was in 8th grade, high school sweethearts all the way through. Married now, have 2 children, beautiful children, one who passed away, so we have 3 in total. And we had this amazing love story. And I could tell it to you when I was young. I could tell you the clothes I was wearing. I could tell you what time he picked me up to take me on dates. I could tell you how he looked and gazed in my eyes. But as I've gotten older, I've forgotten a lot of those details, right? You forget. Life gets busy. So I finally always said, because I procrastinated, I'm going to write that story. I'm going to write our love story down. And everybody was like, you should, it's such a good love story, all the time we grew up. And then finally I had children, and I thought, I'm gonna forget these details. So I did one day. I finally sat down and wrote our story in like a chapter book that I went online and I found they can print a hardcover book. You just have to type the story out. I'm no writer by any means, but that story was important to me. And my daughter just actually recently found it in the bookshelf. She's like, what is this? She's 10. And I was like, oh, I wrote that for Dad. That's our love story. And of course it was like, ugh, but one day she'll appreciate it, maybe. We'll see. So how do you begin to write your legacy? Why? When do you stop procrastinating and actually do it? So I want you, the next time you feel like you have something to say, grab your favorite coffee or tea, grab your favorite pen. We all have a favorite pen, right? Have you ever gone to a restaurant and you're writing and you're like, that's a good pen, you know? And they're like, don't steal my pen, you know? But everybody's got good pens. There's that one pen you really like to write with. I want you to grab that one. And then I want you to go to a corner where you feel calm, and I want you to sit with yourself for a moment. And then I want you to write. So how should you write? What is the importance? Should you sit down and write your whole life story? Sometimes we procrastinate because our life story might be really long and detailed, and it's like, ugh, I am not sitting down to write that. That is going to take way too long. You start to feel overwhelmed. You might have even a little anxiety about it, but you want to sit and write that story. So we suggest 15 minutes, only 15 minutes. Don't write past that, but freehand write. Just sit down and write or speak. If you don't want to write, some people don't want to write, that's okay. Even though writing's a lost art, I'm just going to throw that out there. Sit with yourself for 15 minutes and pick a topic, anything about your life that you want to talk about. The beautiful thing about this guide, beautiful thing about this guide is it has lots of prompts in there to kind of get your brain thinking. So if you want to open it up, and for online, I'll read it out loud on Zoom. So on page 5, there is something that's called a personal legacy letter. And what it says is everyone can write a letter, right? A personal legacy letter is intended to be shared with loved ones while you are still alive, rather than being read at your funeral or memorial celebration. You may want to celebrate a special occasion to read your letter to a family or friends, or include your letter reading as a part of a birthday, anniversary, or holiday celebration. I'm going to pause and tell you a secret. One thing I've always told my husband for Christmas, Valentine's Day, my birthday, is that I just don't want gifts. I just want him to write me a letter. That has yet to happen. But we're going to get it. It's going to happen. I know it one day, someday, it will happen, right? We're going to get off that procrastination bus. But this sample letter says a personal legacy letter of blank. Today's date, dear blank, could be whoever, your children, your spouse, future leaders of America, whoever it is. At the age of blank, I am writing this letter to you to share the personal legacy of my life. My intention is to let you know my thoughts and feelings about the life I have lived, to honor the relationships that have enriched my life, and to express my gratitude for blank. And then it gives you some reflections on values and life lessons. What have I valued most in my life? My life experiences have taught me blank. My special memories and cherished moments. Some of my special memories are of blank. I especially cherish the moments when blank. And we can go on and on. The next page will kind of take you through some more prompts. It'll talk about, your spiritual beliefs, your regrets and forgiveness, future hopes and wishes, gratitude and love, last thoughts and blessings. So you don't have to start from scratch. You have something right in your hands that you can flip to. Even if you're not feeling completely inspired, but you want to get it down, here you go. So then when you sit down with your favorite pen and your good coffee or tea, I want you to find a quiet place and surround yourself with special things. So when I lost my mom wrote in this diary because my yaya, which is grandma in Greek, had dementia. And I had told my mom one day when she called me so frustrated, being a caregiver can be rough sometimes. And I said, get a journal, write down everything you feel, put it out there so you're not carrying that weight of yourself. That journal now I write in. So when I do, I find a quiet space where my kids can't interrupt me 12 times because I'm writing in thought. And I turn on some music. It's typically early in the morning when no one else is awake, so it's quiet. And I like music. Music draws emotion for me. So I like to turn on music. But some people like to sit around their favorite pictures. Or maybe it's a piece. Maybe it's like a mixer that you see right here. That mixer probably has a lot of stories. I wonder what it baked. Maybe bread or cupcakes for birthdays. Something, right? I mean, this thing is well loved. They don't even make mixers that color anymore. Your pictures, your mementos. One of the things I have of mine that I didn't realize at the time, my parents always had this picture of my yaya. It was like one of these very circular, I'm going to say it, old school pictures. And she looked lovely in it. And I always thought she was like, had to be 30. Found out she was 16 in that picture. They just always dressed to the nines, you know? So she looked great. But it was one of those things that pulled my brain like, oh my gosh, I have so many questions. Why did she do her hair like that? You know, why did she sit like that? So it really drew, what was she doing when she was 16 years old? You know, what did her life look like? Had to be much different than mine. So all of these different things, these mementos that might really draw some inspiration, memories, things that are important to you, right? So think about that. Now, I want you to look, can you guys see this book right here? Can you kind of see it? What do you notice about this book? I want to make sure I'm in the camera still. What do you notice about this book? It's old. Think about our younger generation seeing this book. What do you think they would point out? That it's a book? True. It's a cookbook, yep. How about it says, The Way to a Man's Heart, with little settlers walking to the heart. Our generations are very different now. The Settlement Cookbook. What else do you notice? The rubber band around it. Do you ever put a rubber band around your cookbook to hold in all the extra additional recipes you added to the cookbook? What about that piece of paper, that old mail? Right, a recipe or something, right. My yaya, she had a box full of different recipes that I got after she passed away. And some of them are clippings, some of them are old mail. She just jotted a quick recipe down, I'm sure because she saw it on TV and there was no pause back then. And some of them are even written by typewriter. And I love them. I love her handwritten ones the best, but some of them are very hard to read. But I love them. So when you think about this book, this memento, think about your own mementos. Think about what you see, right? So the stains on the book, obviously this was a well-loved book. Someone really loved this book and used it and cooked probably many recipes. The rubber band holding in all those recipes, we talked about that. The cover words. The paper with the recipes written on them, newspaper recipe cutouts. I mean, think about your grandparents. How did they write their recipes? Do you? Stop. Maybe this is the picture. It's got to be online or something somewhere, right? That is so cool. Do you still have it? You never know, right? I know. That's crazy, yeah. So when you sit down, think about that cookbook and the many stories of I'm sure you saw your mom cooking with that cookbook. Yeah, right? And those are stories, they matter. Your stories, they matter. And then they elicit some feelings in your body, right, that you haven't thought about in a long time. It's important. So writing a legacy, we can do the legacy letters, we can do even scrapbooks and photos. Some people love to do that. My mom got into that for a while, and the house looked crazy with all the scrapbooking stuff and stickers. Photos, I love photos. They tell stories just by looking at them, right? So when my mom passed away, I still have a box just full of photos of a lot of people I don't even know. So I took all the photos and I picked them up and I spread them across the table for her memorial. And the stories that came out of those photos was crazy. I had things I never heard before. It was amazing to hear. I love photos. News clippings, documents, important events. One of the things my mom always did is when someone was born, she'd get like the newspaper of that day, so you would know. I love that. Family trees. So my grandfather, he was in World War II. He was a pilot, and one of the things my uncle did was he went through and got all of his old badges and pins and sent them to each grandchild with the history of what he went through in World War II. And I just thought that was so cool. And then he created a family tree. And like, we're from Greece, so for us, you know, that family tree goes way back, you know, all the way from Ellis Island and everything. So things I wouldn't know if somebody didn't take the time to do it. And I appreciate it because it gets lost. I learned after I named my daughter Athena, I found an old Bible in my dad's closet, and my great-great-grandmother's name was Athena, and I never knew it. Crazy, right? Crazy. History, it's important. And you can also record it or create timelines. Sometimes people work better on timelines than they do just freehand writing, and that's okay too. So we're going to try it. Do you feel a little inspired to write or record or just think about it and share? So I want you to go to the very back of this page. In the very, very back, see this little lines and notes? Now this is why you're seated at the tables and not just at the chairs. So you have a pen in front of you, and we are going to practice. We're only going to do 5 minutes, but remember it's recommended 15. But we're going to do 5 for the sake of time, okay? And I'm going to time you, and then I'm going to tell you to stop. And what I want you to do is I want you to write, but I want you to freehand write. I don't want you to edit. I don't want you to correct. I just want you to write, okay? Because sometimes when you go back to correct, you lose your train of thought. So we're going to stay with our thought, okay? So I want you to take 5 minutes, and I want you to write about your first car. Car, your very first car. People online, first car. I want you to write about your first car for 5 minutes. I'm going to set a timer. Don't think about the time, though, just write. I will give you some prompts. Write about your first car. Remember the details. Maybe it's a story surrounding your first car. This is my favorite part. It could be either. Whatever you'd like to write about. If you have a good story about the first car you drove, do that. I feel like there is one there. Somebody felt like we needed music. Yes, I'm coming. Let me come to this side.
I'm unable physically to write.
That's okay. Think about it then. Okay? And then I want you to share. All right. Think about your first car. 2 more minutes. One more minute. And when you're ready, stop writing, put your pens down. Feels like a test. You all get an A, don't worry. Would anybody like to share their legacy of their first car? Yes. 65 Mustang. Your mom wanted you to get it, and you talked her out of it. You sound like my son. You do have a lot of friends when you have a Mustang. You had to share it between you and your brother? You were the money man? Is that why you wore green today? Was your Mustang a stick? Manual? Automatic? Nice. What color was it? Dark green? Green seems to be your color. So you traded it for a Bug? No way. Wow. 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 Well, thank you for sharing. That's a very big difference, Bug to, Mustang, but no judgment. No. Anyone else like to share? Go for it. That's fine though, but at least you're writing it right now. Aw, nice. Wow. Nice. Ah. Oh, okay. All right. That's good. I love the way you described it, not till you're 25 and that because you were living in Brooklyn. That really kind of sets the scene of like why you didn't get it at 25. Good details to include. Anyone else? Really? How old were you when you got it? Wow. 16. Nice. Nice. So it was a hand-me-down car. Wow. Instead of clothes, you got a hand-me-down car. Nice. And clothes, yeah. You and me both. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else want to share? Wow. No. Nice. Was that good? Cool. Where'd you race them? In Clearwater? That's so cool. So your car never made it over the bridge. It broke down? Did you? Oh, I told you it was a piece of junk. Oh, good. Good. Yeah, that's Skyway. That can be a treacherous bridge. It was the old bridge though, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's my mom would panic. She'd put her head between her knees every time we went over that. I grew up in Tampa, so the Skyway was one of those things she hated crossing. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else like to share? Go for it. Oh. Was it a bug? A VW? A Corvair, yes. Cool. Right? Right. That's good. I love that too because one topic of let's talk about your first car, kind of how you asked, like, is it the first car you drive or is it the first car you bought? It kind of brings up these other memories, right, within that car, you know? So it's not just about what your car looked like or how it drove. It's all of a sudden this story about your freedom and about being the only person in the car and then nearly missing a car. It's all these like amazing stories that come from just one moment, one topic, one idea that really kind of snowball into the rest of your life. So yeah, thank you for sharing. I think great. That was great. Anybody else? Go for it. Wow. Oh, yeah. Aww. I love that. Wow. Yeah, totally different. I still can't drive a stick. I've tried thousands of times. It's a sad thing to watch. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, that's the thing you don't remember. You don't remember these little details, until you start really talking about it. This is my first car. It was a Dynasty, Chrysler Dynasty. I remember driving home with my brother one day in his very banana yellow Cadillac, and we were coming home from school, and I saw this amazing Mustang. I couldn't tell you what year or anything like that. It was older, but it was awesome, and it was this lime green again. And I loved it, and I told my dad, oh my gosh, I saw this car. It had a for sale sign. Can we please go look at it? And I was surprised when he was like, sure. Well, when we got there, he was like, it's too expensive, but I'll see what we can do about getting you a car. So, flash forward, my yaya decides to buy a brand new car. So I get her Dynasty. It was a 1985 Dynasty with plush velvet interior. It had a car phone, and even though that car phone didn't work, I thought I was pretty cool. And at first I was like, ugh, it's purple, Dad. Like the car is purple. But then I come to love this car because the trunk was so big, I could fit so many of my friends in that trunk and in the back seat, even though it probably wasn't legal. Well, it wasn't. But we would go to the beach like that. And I ended up loving this car. It had this wood grain on the front. It had the windows, that you crank down. And I loved that car. And that was my very first car. And it was so crazy to think about because when you're writing these stories, I want you to think specifically about all these little details, right? Like the crank window. Let me ask you, if you were to motion to somebody, how do you roll down your window? What would you do? What motion would you do? Right? So they did a YouTube video of a younger generation person and an older generation person together, and they did this question. Motion how you'd roll down a window. The older person said like this. The younger person said like this. How do you talk on the phone? How do you guys motion that you talk on the phone? Right? This way? Younger generation? This way. It's crazy to think about, but that's how much our world has changed, right? We don't crank down windows anymore. Seatbelts? Some cars never had seatbelts. That would be wild for if I told my daughter, yes, we didn't have seatbelts or car seats, didn't have to be strapped in. I can remember my mom just like sat in the car seat right in between me and my brother. There were no straps, and I was just like, okay, good luck, little brother, especially with the way she drove. But you think about this. I want you to think about this when you're writing your legacy or talking about your legacy. All these details are important because they're going to be lost in history if we don't talk about it. I love the fact of like De los Muertos. It's a Hispanic heritage holiday that they celebrate, and it's called the Day of the Dead. And what they do is they put up pictures and favorite foods of the person who's gone, and they tell stories about that person. And the idea behind it is, as long as you speak about these people, you tell about their legacies, they never die. They're always with you. And I think that is so true. If we can keep legacies alive, people live forever. And it doesn't have to be Dame Cecilia Saunders who founded the first hospice, but it can just be your legacy, your wisdom. I recently gave one of these speeches and presentations to a group, and this woman shared her grandfather's advice. And it was something that I will butcher it if I try to quote it, but it was something that stuck with her forever. She quoted it forever. A simple quote, a simple phrase. But it was something that she lived her life by. You can give somebody that. It's a beautiful thing. All right, so we talked about window cranks and chokes, automatic versus transmission, clutches, gears, fins. My dad had a Cadillac that had fins on it. Love that car. Floor button lights. Do you remember like you used to have to pull the button out for the lights? Cigarette lighters, those don't exist anymore. I burned myself many of times on those. It's always so fun. So if you don't want to write, and not everybody likes to write, some people don't like to freehand, some people like to type, some people don't want to do any of that. But they do have things like PowerPoints with pictures. You can also get digital recorders. Our phones have them. They're built in now. You can also go to your local library if you've got old pictures that you want to include or scan or keep forever. So my mom, when she was actually a bunny, she used to tell me all the time about how they used to have to do this bunny dip with the tail, and they'd have to serve the drinks that way. Anyway, I realized that when her house burned down from a cat knocking over a lamp, that she lost all her costumes. And I only have 2 pictures of her as a Playboy bunny. Funny thing happened after she passed away. Right before Hugh Hefner passed away, they did like a special edition, I think it was 80 years or 70 years, I can't remember. And my cousin calls me from Chicago, and she's like, hey, this is gonna sound really weird. But my husband has a subscription to Playboy, and he was flipping through it the other day, and I think your mom is in there. And I was like, what? She was like, I'm pretty sure it's your mom. And so I, of course, run over to Barnes & Noble's, and I buy it, and I flip through it, and there's my mom in this squatted position holding a Free the Bunnies sign, because they were, I guess, petitioning for more pay. And her and a bunch of bunnies, they're in t-shirts and stuff, but it says something like Free the Bunnies, I can't remember, but I kept it. I kept it because how wild. And my mom, super shy person, would have been appalled to know she ended up in the magazine. So it's just an amazing thing to have, though, all these like little mementos. So, go to your local library. They have tons of different services, digital services that can help you do it. If none of that works for you, there is something called Storyworth.com. Storyworth.com, and it gives you weekly and monthly prompts, just topics, ideas, similar to this book. This book has a ton of prompts in it. So if you go through this book, you will see, it'll kind of tell you how to prepare, pretty much what we talked about. And then what will happen is, let me get back over here. Boop-a-doo-doo. I love doing this. You pick any topic. So if you go to page 8, it'll give you potential topics. A dedication to your family and friends. Feelings about your life. How I feel about today's today's world. My life's philosophy. Your thoughts about what is good and what is bad. Feelings. One of the things I always tell people about is my dad. So my dad was a storyteller. Well, he is a storyteller still, not as much anymore, but one of the things he used to do to punish us was, if we, like us in the neighborhood kids, weren't acting right or doing something right, is he would sit us down and he would lecture us. He would lecture us until we were like, please stop, I can't listen to you talk anymore. But in the beginning, my friends always thought it was so cool because he had crazy stories about his life. He, one of the things he used to say is like, don't do drugs, don't ever do drugs. And he would tell us about this kid who used to sniff glue, and he'd sit and he'd drool on himself in the park, and everybody look at this kid and be like, that's why you don't do drugs. And so it was this story that he would always tell us, and we were always just like, but by the end of like 30 lectures, we were like, enough, put us in our rooms, ground us, take away whatever you need to, we don't want to listen anymore. It was just a lot. But my new friends who would come over, who are new to there, would be like, oh no, have him tell us more stories. And he would tell us all these crazy, and we'd be like, we heard them all 17 different times. Don't get in trouble, or he'll just tell you every single one. But come to find out now, after all this time, now my kids are sitting around talking to him, and he's telling them these stories. I cherish them, and now I watch my kids just squirm. Like, he just tells these stories, Mom, and I'm like, I know, enjoy them. But I found myself quietly sneaking around the corner and recording them, because I know that I will never tell the story the way he does. I'll never remember it the way he tells it, and I want those stories now after all this time. Kind of came full circle, which is a little weird, but it's nice to watch my kids squirm too and be like, I know, I've been there. But these prompts, they really share things, and my dad, although he had these crazy stories, was extremely insightful, is extremely insightful. I still call him for advice all the time because he has a perspective on the world that is so beautiful to me. Even though it might be harsh and critical sometimes, most of the time it's about loving each other and having this human interaction all the time. It makes me a better person because of the stories that he shared about who he is. And that's what I want you to think about, because what you have, we have all gone through trials and tribulations. We don't learn worthy wisdom when things are great and lovely. We learn worthy wisdom when things are hard and you persevere. And each one of you here today, I'm sure, has a story like that, right? And that's a story worth sharing, because that wisdom is something that somebody else is going to cherish forever. And you might not think it's important, but I promise you it is. I promise you. So other ones are like devotion, happiness, charity, courage, compassion, luck, good fortune, loyalty. How have I tried to attain financial security? Great one to talk about, because we don't talk about it enough and it's needed. Memories and reflecting on the past or challenges. How have I learned to overcome? Loneliness. How do you define that? What does that look like? I recently went back and read one of my diary dates, and I read it and I was so happy to see it and reminisce, because I literally wrote about a cardinal sitting in my window and how the light shined through, and it was just this cardinal, and it always came to visit, and it would tap, tap, tap on my window, and I always reminded me of my mom, or the rainbows in the sky of my son and my mom. So just these little stories, and even for me to go back, because you forget about those small little moments, but then I see it and I remember it, what that felt like in that moment. One of my kids' successes, I'm glad I write it down, because if I didn't, they might be upset with me that I don't remember. It's hard to remember everything or every coloring, but it's good because I have it written down so I don't forget. Your hopes for the future, your favorite poem or music. I wish I could tell you what my mom's favorite musician was. I think it was Sade, but we listen to that a lot in the car. Your beliefs, what has influenced your life? So let me ask you guys, what is one thing that you have ever been told in your life that you have carried through as a piece of advice or wisdom that someone else has told you? Really drawing on that memory right now, right? Or what's one thing you would share with the younger generations? If you're gonna do it right. Right, definitely. I think my dad told me that too when I didn't wipe down the counters after cleaning the kitchen and doing the dishes, and he was like, if you're gonna do it right. Don't do it half blank. I love it. Oh, I think I hit that. Oh my goodness. Anybody else? Something that maybe your mom's always told you, or your dad, or your sibling, or maybe your spouse. One thing my spouse has always told me is, Kelly, just to share a little bit about myself, I recently did a crazy challenge. I paddled from the Bahamas to Florida on a paddleboard. And I remember coming to my husband and saying, hey, I'm thinking about crossing the ocean on a paddleboard. Do you think that's crazy? He was like, nope, that's pretty much like you. He said, but one thing I know is anything that you set your mind to, you can do it. And I didn't believe that about me. But once I got that reminder, it was nice to hear, right? Because the truth is sometimes you need somebody to remind you who you are, right? Or my mom always told me time heals. Give it time. Time heals everything. In time. I don't know if it's completely true, but she meant well. Anybody else have any wisdom they would ever share with somebody else? It's important. Well, I hope today when you leave here, you find 15 minutes in your day, once a week, once a month, once a year. I don't journal every day. I journal when I feel like I need to. So some years are completely skipped. The kids are definitely coming for me for that one, but it's when I feel I need to. So I hope when you leave here today, you take some time to really write your legacy. Record it. We all have phones or somebody around you who knows how to use the phone. You know, sometimes the phones can be complicated with recording things, but, you know, record yourself or write it down. Writing can be very cathartic. Spend time talking about your legacy. Make sure that you're sharing these stories. If Dame Cecilia Saunders never set out to push through, to persevere, to advocate for what she believed what was right, which was providing dignity in death, hospice would never have been a thing, and I would never be here. So take time not to just write your legacy, but continue to create it. You are you. You will always be you. That is truer than true. That's what Dr. Seuss said, and we have to believe that. So I hope today I inspired you to write your own legacy, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you so much.